1More has just announced the 1More Evo, these flagship earbuds that come in at around £160 in the UK and around $170 in the US. In this review, you can see how it compares to its major rivals and to see if it's actually worth its price tag. So to kick off this review, I want to talk about connectivity, and of course I have to mention Bluetooth codecs. Now here the earbuds support the SBC, AAC and the LDAC codecs. The latter is absolutely fantastic to see. And I had no problems whatsoever connecting up to my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, whereby I had no sort of video lag or lip sync delays, and as for the connectivity between left and right earbud and to my device, I had no problems. Now I should mention both earbuds can be used in a mono format. However, the switch between left and right isn't as seamless as it used to be, at least on 1More earbuds, or indeed in comparison to some of its rivals. Each time you pop a earbud out of your ears and put them back into the case, the other earbud will pause, and therefore you just have to resume your music each time. It's a little bit cumbersome, but if you're going to be doing this regularly, you might want to look at alternatives. But if it's not something that's going to be overly bothering you, or for example if you don't mind just tapping on the earbuds to resume the playback, then it's going to be a non-issue. So with that in mind, let's get on to sound quality, and before going into that I should just mention a few things. Now when you do enable active noise cancellation, it will have a slight degraded audio performance on the earbuds. Thankfully you can have a slight EQ on this. Here it will boost the mid bass and the highs a little bit and dip the mids. Now onto the EQ, you've got Sound ID. It's effectively an automatic EQ as such, because you go through a little basic listening test in terms of what frequencies you prefer or the sound you prefer, and then it will give you a personalized sound. Unfortunately, there's no means of adjusting the EQ after you have set it, so you'll just have to bear that in mind. And as a result, if you're going to be using active noise cancellation with these earbuds, which I'd very much suggest, then you might want to do your Sound ID test with ANC enabled, so that it counteracts the sort of differences that ANC has on the overall frequency range. Now on that note, let's go on to the overall sound of these earbuds. And first off, on the sub-bass tones, they are there. You can definitely hear a rumble and you have that sort of excitement. Now they won't quite compete with the likes of the Grado GT220s or the likes of the Technics EAH-AZ60s, which in this department, these two earbuds stand in a league of their own. They are not quite in terms of competition in comparison to the 1More Evos. Now nevertheless here, the 1More Evos still do a decent job on the lower tones, because the mid-bass is very forward sounding and it definitely can be felt. I would say it's one of the most strongest frequencies that can be heard on these 1More earbuds. Here I feel that there's no problems whatsoever. For someone who does like R&B, D&B and EDM music, it is definitely exciting to listen to, whereby the mid basses come to the forefront. It's not only precise, whereby it's got a good quality, but it's got a good amount of quantity, at least for me. Of course you can EQ this, as I did mention before, via the Sound ID test, so you might want to just, for example, reduce the bass frequency. Now with that mid-bass emphasis, the mid-range does take a little bit of a hit, but it's not too severe. I would say actually I would prefer the 1More Evos in terms of their mid-range tones over the likes of the Grado or the Technics, but in comparison to the likes of the Sennheiser MTW3 True Wireless 3, I would prefer these. Here the Evos also do far better job than the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros, so it is to be kind of put in perspective that they're actually pretty good in comparison to some of its competitors, but they're not exactly class leading. Now I don't have too much of a complaint in this department, specifically because the upper mids do a really good job, and therefore when you listen to certain tracks with certain types of vocals, then you might be actually left pretty impressed by what the 1Mores are able to achieve. Now as for the highs, they extend very well. I had no problems whatsoever. As I did mention before, ANC does boost the highs a little bit, so therefore might become a little bit overzealous or harsh or sibilant at the top end if you haven't done the EQ prior to doing ANC enabled, but nevertheless it's just something I thought to point out. Now my biggest disappointment out of all with the 1More Evos is the overall soundstage, and the reason I mention this is because the overall width and depth just feels a bit too closed. I was expecting it to be a little bit more airy. Now this could be due to the overall housing of the earbuds, and therefore they have a bit more of a kind of claustrophobic sound. It would be somewhat similar to the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros, and I would say is a little bit worse than the likes of the Sennheiser MTW3 True Wireless 3. Indeed, in this department there are absolutely no competition to the likes of the Grado or the Technics earbuds. Now there is the instrument separation, which is still very good, but yet again not quite matched in comparison to all of its rivals. Here I would say, for example, while the Jabra Elite 7 Pros have a pretty tight and controlled soundstage, they do have absolutely phenomenal instrument separation, and the same couldn't be quite said about the 1More Evos. Ultimately here, the overall sound that you're getting is pretty intimate, and that's not exactly a bad thing, but in terms of the overall soundstage and potentially airiness that you might want on a set of audiophile grade True Wireless earbuds, well, the 1More Evos don't quite tick that box.
So what about when it comes to recording quality? Well, everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the 1More earbuds, and I must say I'm very impressed with what 1More have been able to achieve. The call quality, or at least my voice, comes out really clearly, and in comparison to what else you can find out there in the market, I think these earbuds do a phenomenal job. Now, just for comparison, here are the Technics EAH-AZ60s, which I think do really good across the board when it comes to overall call quality, and hopefully you'll be able to agree that the 1More earbuds are similarly excellent. Elsewhere, you've got the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros to consider as well, so suffice to say that call quality is a non-issue with the 1More Evo earbuds.
So with all of that in mind, let's get on to active noise cancellation. And I'm going to be highlighting some of the problems that I experienced further down in this review via the app section and very showcasing it. But what I'll say in a nutshell is that when you have ANC enabled on the earbuds and you pop them in their case and let's say pop them out of their case again, for example for your next listening session, you'll find that ANC automatically disables itself, which is absolutely cumbersome. In other words, you're going to have to re-enable ANC manually every single time you use the earbuds, which is just, I don't know why 1More have not addressed this prior to releasing the earbuds. Of course, this can be addressed in a future firmware update, so just bear this in mind. Now, when it comes to the actual raw ANC performance, I was actually expecting a little bit better. The reason I say this is because in the past I've been absolutely blown away by the overall ANC performance of 1More earbuds, and here I was expecting the same with the 1More Evos, but alas, that wasn't quite the case. And that's not to say that the 1More Evos are bad, far from it. Actually, they do really good in comparison to a lot of other earbuds. They're better than the likes of the Jabra Elite 7 Pros, and they're pretty much on par with the likes of the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 3. However, they are a lot better than the likes of the Grado GT220s, which don't have ANC altogether, and the Technics EAH-AZ60. So, put into perspective, their ANC is pretty good, but it's not quite class-leading. Here, if you do want class-leading ANC, you might want to look at one of its siblings, in other words, previous generations of 1More earbuds, or for example, the likes of the Libratone Track Air Plus or the Sony earbuds instead.
So moving on to the app, there's a few things I'd like to highlight. Now first off, you can see on the listening modes I've got active noise cancellation enabled on the adaptive mode. You can adjust the different levels, go on transparency or disabled. Now my problem is that each time I place down the earphones, the earbuds will turn off ANC, which isn't a problem. That is pretty self-explanatory. Pop them back into my ears, you'll be able to see that it automatically re-enables ANC without me doing anything else. Now for example, if I were to get the earbuds out and put them in their case, you'll be able to see that the listening mode has gone to off, so as if I was just placing them down, and of course soon the Bluetooth will be disconnected and will disappear from my Bluetooth menu. Now for example, I'm come to a new day and I want to get these earbuds back out, I pop them into my ear and I would naturally expect it to be re-enabled in terms of ANC. But instead I have to go back through the app and re-enable ANC, which I just find counterintuitive. It means that someone has to keep going back into the app in order to enable the feature that they were last using. And here I feel that 1More could address it via firmware update. Now likewise, I'm disappointed that in terms of the custom settings, in other words the touch controls, are only adjusted based on what 1More provide you. Let's say for example you wanted a double tap previous track on the left and you wanted on the right play and pause. Well, you won't be able to do that because you're only able to go based on what 1More provides you, and that for me is a limiting factor. Furthermore, on the touch controls themselves, while they are well responsive, I do feel that they take a little bit of extra time to respond to inputs, and as a result sometimes you're waiting for that input to take place. Now moving back through the app, you'll be able to see over here you've got the Sound ID, which I did reference to before. Now the Sound ID allows you to enable or disable it, however yet again there's no customization, so you can't see what it's doing in terms of the EQ, and for you to actually tailor the EQ to your own liking even after having done the Sound ID. Or equally, if you didn't want to do the Sound ID each time, you'd be able just to enable the EQ, so that's just via a multi-band equalizer. Here again, yes, I think that 1More should be able to optimize this. Now as for the Bluetooth connection setup, if you want to run LDAC, you'll want to enable priority on sound quality, enable this feature, and then go on your Bluetooth menu and enable LDAC. Of course, if you have the ability to run that higher quality codec. Finally, you've got OTA firmware update. quick guide to the product and some soothing sounds which you can play back via the earbuds via preset sounds that are set via the app.
Now moving swiftly on, I must say I really love the ergonomics of these earbuds, and that's because in comparison to a lot of the other earbuds that I've mentioned throughout this review, they are actually quite small and therefore means that will fit in a lot more ear canals, at least in my opinion. Here they're also quite lightweight and makes them very ideal for taking them on jogs, and in this case you'll be also pleased to know they're also IPX4 certified, so therefore they've got a slight bit of water resistance. Now as for the overall battery life, the earbuds will run around for 5.5 hours with active noise cancellation enabled, and if you were to disable ANC, this will go up to around 8 hours. As for the charging case, it will provide around 20 hours and 28 hours respectively, whereby itself takes around 2 hours to charge from empty to full. And so this brings me on to my verdict of the 1More Evo. Now while these earbuds are not perfect for myself and whereby I'd be using the Technics AZ60s over the Evos, it's not to say that the 1More earbuds are bad. Far from it. They've actually got really good overall sound quality, the ANC and recording quality is fantastic, and the app provides personalization and customization, although it could be improved in this department as well. The best thing about these is that they come in at a cheaper price tag than a majority of its rivals, and they're also very ergonomic, which is something that's often overlooked when it comes to flagship ANC or regular set of earbuds. And here the Evos, in my opinion, will fit a lot of ear canals and therefore means that it's, well, going to be appealing to a wider audience. As such, I can definitely see myself recommending them for such users, and it gets my Best Buy award. Now I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts of the earbuds down in the comment section below, and if you've liked this independent detailed review and want to see more from myself, then definitely do drop a like, subscribe and hit that bell notification. It all really does help, but of course if you've done that already, I just want to thank you in advance. As such, I've been Totally Dubs, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.